Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipster Podcast. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where I interview founders, entrepreneurs, executives, thought leaders, amazing people all around the world. And today I have an amazing guest. He is the CEO of Covalent. His name is Ganesh Swami. Ganesh, welcome to the show.
Jamal, a pleasure to be here. Really excited to share some of my views and have a conversation moving forward.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. And we had to reschedule from August, and I was a little ill beginning of August, so I'm glad we had a chance to reschedule. So this is great. So I want to start off with the first question, and it's what is your background, and is it a logical background for what you're doing now?
So I trained as a physicist, and I used to work on cancer drugs, specifically protein folding or protein misfolding simulations. And I did that for about half my career and then pivoted out of that space, out of pharmaceuticals, because it takes about 10 years to get a drug into what is known as like clinical trials, which is what you would call in technology as a minimum viable product. So just getting in the hands of the people who need it the most. And all along, I was seeing my friends in technology starting companies, getting funded and going through M&A and exit transactions in less than 18 months. And I was starting to envy their position on how fast their lives were. And so at some point, I decided that I had to pivot out of pharmaceuticals and cancer drugs to technology, proper pure play technology, because I was missing the rapid pace of innovation and delivering value to customers. So that happened about a decade ago, and I guess you could call that the broad strokes is solving customer needs and pushing human needs forward. So I pivoted out of pharmaceuticals into just general data infrastructure. So this is Web2 data infrastructure, and that's just around when cloud computing started to get exciting, a lot of adoption with enterprises, and I started to see what a technological shift can do to an industry. And so you have winners and losers, people who are able to adapt, people who are not able to adapt, and they're left behind. And so that's a generational transformation with many iconic companies coming on the horizon. And so from there, I accidentally fell into the crypto space through a hackathon. I'm from Vancouver, and it rains a lot here. So one fine Saturday, it was raining, nowhere to go, and a friend of mine told me about this hackathon. Ended up going to that hackathon and working on something over 2 days that is now today Covalent. So we ended up winning that hackathon and going to market with it. So the crypto journey has also been kind of crazy over the last couple of years, the ups and downs. A volatile industry. But here we are. Continue to build, continue to deliver value to customers and stakeholders many years after. So I think that's a compressed summary of an introduction to me. So I'm passionate about entrepreneurship. I'm adventurous at heart, so I do adventure sports as a hobby, and I love sharing my insights and mentoring participants who are newer to the industry, be it like technology building or go to market or raising capital or how to motivate your team and so on. And so, yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow. Yeah, clinical trials are tough because, you don't know if you're getting a placebo or if you're getting the real thing, you know? So it's good to see you found your passion, and it's good. It's good. Yeah, Covalent. So Covalent's not a healthcare company. It's a data company. Like, so what is it all? What's it all about, and how are you building a community for transparent blockchain data enthusiasts?
Yeah, great question. So the word covalent comes from from chemistry, covalent bonds. It's one kind of chemical bond, and so that's just tying in the pharmaceutical side of things to what I'm doing right now. And so the analogy comes in as we provide a Web2 style interface to Web3 technologies, specifically data. So in the Web2 world, you have a set of investments in technology and processes and people and skills. And it doesn't make sense to throw away all of those investments just because Web3 is a new technology. So what Covalent does is it offers a bond or a bridge or a connecting layer between Web 2 and Web 3. So you don't have to throw away the investments in your technology or your processes or the people you have just to adopt Web 3 technologies. So that is the ideology behind Covalent. So that's been our value prop. And so you can extend this analogy into Web 2 and Web 3, centralized systems and decentralized systems, or databases and blockchains. And so that's essentially what we're binding these two disparate, completely different philosophies of systems and people to getting the job done, being practical, and being able to read data off a blockchain. So that is the meaning behind Covalent and our the Genesis idea. But fundamentally, what we believe in is over the last, I would say, decade or so, there's been tens of billions of dollars invested into scaling blockchains, specifically what we call as the write throughput. So this is why you have blockchains coming out and thumping on their chest and claiming massive transactions per second. So that's basically how fast you can write to a blockchain. But an overlooked problem is how fast can you read from the blockchain? And so that is the problem Covalent is squarely focused on and has been solving for a couple of years. So you have all this massive data, but if you cannot read, if you cannot make this data accessible, then the point of, I would say almost like the point of blockchains is moot. So it provides all these amazing features, immutable ledger, transparency, but these are all just in name if you cannot actually practically get at the data. So that is what Covalent does. It makes the data that's on blockchains easily accessible, readable, available in your existing tool set. You don't have to run custom hardware. You don't have to run custom software. You don't have to learn new technologies. You don't have to just use your Excel. Excel runs the world. So Excel is where it's at. So it just literally appears in your tool of choice. So that is what Covalent does. There's a lot of bits under the hood, but the value prop here is we offer an easy to use interface to access blockchain data.
Interesting. I've been saying for a few years now that in order to get really, I mean, people will say get mass adoption, we need X, Y, Z. I've been saying in order to get mass adoption, you need corporations to give corporations a way to transfer their data off Excel, off Access, off SQL databases and get it on the blockchain, right? It sounds to me like you're going to be able to help them do that.
Exactly right.
Very cool. So you are really helping and safeguarding Ethereum over most other blockchains, right? So how are you safeguarding, enhancing Ethereum's historical data availability, and why is it important to do that?
Yeah, so this gets into the ideological argument behind Ethereum and Ethereum's success and essentially the ethos of Ethereum. So if you look at the blockchain space right now, Ethereum is really in a is in a tough spot. So on one side, it's competing with Bitcoin as a store of value, right? So this is where the ultrasound money narrative comes in. That's where the burn fee mechanism comes in. Yeah, the gas uses it to make Ethereum itself deflationary, and and so on, blah blah blah. And then on the other hand, it's actually competing with Solana as a application platform. And I think there's a Chinese proverb that if you chase two rabbits, you catch none. And now what's happening is it's losing the battle with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the ETF. Bitcoin has the institutional adoption. Bitcoin is well understood. It's known as a digital gold, very clear kind of narrative. But it's also losing the battle with Solana because Solana has amazing traction. Solana is super fast. The whole ecosystem is building up. Breakpoint was just last week. Amazing traction. And so what's happened with Ethereum itself is that the core value prop is being questioned by insiders. Vitalik outlined this roll-up centric roadmap a few years ago where you can scale Ethereum using all of the rollups like Arbitrum and Optimism and all these different chains. And now the community is starting to question if this is the right approach and if this is actually accruing value to Ethereum itself, or are these rollups parasitic where they're just leeching off all of the traction and all of the fee structure and all of the users, because they all live on the L2s, not on the L1. And then at some point, they could just fork away and say, we don't need Ethereum anymore. We'll just be standalone sovereign chains. So the community is at a crossroads. It's not clear if this roadmap is the de facto. So that's where things are today. And our thesis is that Ethereum should continue to double down on this roadmap of having rollups as the scaling strategy. And the community needs to re-envision Ethereum as it was, 10 years ago when the white paper was written, but in a new modular stack. So what that means is that you have specialized layers for execution, specialized layers for consensus, specialized layers for data availability. And Ethereum itself fundamentally does not change the ethos. So one of the key aspects about Ethereum is it's not a data center chain. So let me talk about what that means. A lot of these faster throughput chains like Solana, but also on the Ethereum world, like let's say like EVM chains like Monad and so on, they make some trade-offs in order to achieve this fast throughput. So fundamentally what they do is they chuck out historical data, and they also are what is known as data center chains. So they're specialized for hardware that only runs in data centers, not in commodity, everyday Joe's computers. And so it's only available to a few select participants to actually run these nodes. And my fear is that Ethereum, in its battle to compete for mindshare with Solana, is making a set of choices that leads Ethereum to become a data center chain. And this is the exact opposite of what has led to Ethereum's dominance today. So one of the key aspects about Ethereum are these solo stakers. So there's about 1 million solo stakers, or about thereabouts. I have to check the number here, but there's a large number of people who run the Ethereum infrastructure on their commodity hardware at home. And that is the power of Ethereum. But by making these choices to compete with Solana, what ends up happening is these solo stakers are disenfranchised. They're thrown under the bus. They're rug pulled. And I think that is a mistake, because the power of Ethereum is its community and its solo stakers, the easy, accessible hardware requirements. So anyone can help participate and be part of the Ethereum initiative, the movement here. So that is where things are at crossroads. So what we are proposing is Ethereum does not fundamentally change. The different roles with data availability, with consensus algorithms, with the actual execution layer are outsourced to specialized systems, just like how in economics you use trade to outsource to specialized providers, and that is the best allocation of resources. And instead of having it as a monolithic chain, have it as a modular chain. And on the data availability layer, today Ethereum is the DA is on chain. So your CryptoPunks and so on are on chain, but all of that is going to get chucked out. And so therefore, Covalent's Ethereum Wayback Machine, which is this piece of technology we've built, brings back those features. So basically, by subtracting out of Ethereum and then adding in specialized providers who specialize in a specific role, basically the sum of the parts is greater than the whole. So you get to rebuild Ethereum, but now it's a more modular vision as opposed to a monolithic stack and being confused about what's the purpose of Ethereum in this world. So that is essentially the story and the narrative behind how or what the core issues with Ethereum are. And I can talk a little more about the data availability piece, which is where we have a big contribution to make.
Yeah, please do. I mean, the whole entire monolithic versus modular argument, and for way you said spoke so far, it makes it sound like Ethereum is broken down. And it needs to be like re refixed. And if we don't do that, then what happens? You know?
Exactly, rebuilt, but without rug pulling these solo stakers who've been there since day one and who've supported. You can't throw your early supporters under the bus, right? Now that Ethereum is all grown up and you have the ETFs and now your buddies are the institutions, that's kind of like, it doesn't sit well with me. So essentially, you should go back and empower these people who've been there since day one. So coming to the DA piece, so what is DA? So DA means that you make the transaction data available for a outside party to challenge it, right? So either you have a fraud proof of sorts, so that if there's any kind of like fraud that happens, an outside party can publish a fraud proof and show that there's been fraud with the transaction data, and therefore you can slash that person who submitted the fraud. And so before the rollups, before these alt DA layers, before blobs, all of the DA was on chain. So they were in something known as call data. So this is like tapping into a bit of your technical audience, which I think some people will appreciate. Now, the problem with on-chain DA is that though you have all of these rollups, you have Arbitrum, you have ZK Sync, you have Optimism, and Scroll, and so on. All of those rollups were putting their transaction data on the Ethereum mainnet, and so it didn't really solve the problem of having these fast, scalable rollups because the L1 continued to be congested, and the fees is always passed down. So the fee that you pay on the L2 equals the fee that the L2 is charged to post data to the L1. So the fees is amortized. So the fee also does not drop because the L1 is crowded. So there's been a set of changes, set of technologies that have been introduced across multiple parties. This is not just an Ethereum land. So in Ethereum land, the most recent hard fork was the Deacon upgrade. And so there, the blob storage was introduced. So now all of this transaction data can be introduced into blobs rather than putting it on chain. So this is a different fee market. And these blobs help scale having this transaction data. So you keep the blobs around for the challenge. The functionality works exactly the same. The other option is you have an alt DA. So an alt DA is an alternative data availability layer like Celestia or EigenDA or Avail. There's plenty of these DA layers. So the rollups then publish their transaction data to the alt DA and then wait for the challenge window, see if there's any challenge to the data that's been posted. And if there's no challenge, then the data is good. Then it's settled on the L1. So basically, that's how that process works. Now, the issue with all of these DA layers and blobs is that there's no point in keeping this transaction data after the challenge window. So the challenge window may be 2 weeks. In the case of Ethereum, in the blobs, it's 4,000 epochs, which is about 18 days. And so what ends up happening is this transaction data is chucked out. So this comes back to the thing that blockchains are actually billboards. They're not databases. So you post your transaction data on this billboard, and then you wait for a challenge to come up through a fraud proof. And if there's nothing of that sort, then you chuck it out and you say, okay, move on to the next thing. So now you have an acute problem is where is this transaction data? How do I rebuild the state of Ethereum? How do I rebuild the different, how do I get this transaction? How do I pay my taxes? How do I get, my CryptoPunks? So there's just these set of changes that are being made to Ethereum and these alt DAs in the name of scalability and throughput, which you've started to lose functionality that was available like previously, right? So previously you could, like, Bitcoin is the best example of where all of this is available from the Genesis block. So the last 10 years, no data has been lost. But in the Ethereum world, the blobs are being deleted. So these changes are being made in the name of scalability, but you've lost some functionality. You've lost some of that hardness around Ethereum, some of this, technologies that will survive World War III and a nuclear winter, right? So that's what these technologies are meant for. So you're starting to lose some of that stuff, right? Just think about it as burning down the Library of Congress. That's nobody's going to support that kind of initiative, right? That's almost an act of treason if you did that. So, so here, what Covalent has offered is a new piece of technology called the Ethereum Wayback Machine, like the Internet Wayback Machine, which lets you. So, Internet Wayback Machine is you can go to archive.org and you can get any website on the internet at any point in time. So, it just generates the snapshots. So, what the Ethereum Wayback Machine does is it has all of this transaction data at any point in time, as it was prior to the Daquin upgrade and prior to the alt DAs getting adoption. So we've basically brought back this feature set, and the you require a new stack. You can't just store this in a storage layer from the DA layer, because the security model is a bit different. So I'm not going to get into the specifics here, but you need a first principles ground up thinking of what's possible. So the Ethereum Wayback Machine is a white paper we wrote about a year ago, so last summer, and this is actually something I've discussed with the EigenLayer founder Sriram, and so we've bounced some ideas back and forth on what this thing looks like, and so that's been pretty exciting. And then the biggest update now is that last week we announced that the testnet is now open for what is known as the Ethereum Wayback Machine Light Client. So you can run, essentially, you can help secure Ethereum on your laptop, on your cell phone, maybe even, in fact, as a Telegram bot. Super lightweight in terms of its requirements, right? So it's accessible to these solo safers. It's accessible to the average, everyday Joe. You don't need specialized hardware. You don't need a data center. You don't need to be an enterprise with the investments, and you don't need any of these specialized skills. So we're basically bringing back what was lost. And in about 4 or 5 days, we've gotten 3,000 applicants to run this testnet, to be part of this mission, which is very, very exciting. And so over the coming weeks, what we have is a set of meetups across the globe. We have 2 in New York next week. We have a couple in Shanghai, a couple in Madrid, a couple in Bangkok around DEF CON. And this is just to let people know about the Ethereum Wayback Machine, the problem it solves, and a hands-on workshop on rolling up your sleeves and being able to run these light clients on your laptop. So that's a summary of what we've been up to with the data availability piece.
I like it. It sounds good. It sounds really good. Yeah, so I want to find out about this. I want to find out about we talk about readable transactions. We also talked about standardizing them. So you have something called Gold Rush, right? So I want to find out how Gold Rush works and why it's a game changer in the realm of standardizing readable transactions.
Absolutely. So what Gold Rush offers is the Gold Rush API. It's one of our flagship products. And this is a programmatic, a developer tool to access blockchain data. So there's hundreds of apps right now who are using blockchain data through the Gold Rush API, including the Web2 giants like Fidelity, Ernst & Young. So if you're a US taxpayer, you're most likely using Covalent data. And then lots of Web3 native, crypto native applications like Rainbow Wallet, Jump, and so on. So hundreds of these organizations rely on Gold Rush API to access the Covalent data. And there's a couple of features in Gold Rush that make it best in class. The first is the unified nature. So what that means is that the Gold Rush API supports about 200 chains. So all the major chains, Ethereum, Avalanche, Optimism, Arbitrum, Polygon, and so on. Beta chain, we're yet to announce that, so maybe some alpha for your listeners. So pretty much every EVM chain under the hood in the world. And so the magic of the Gold Rush API is that you only have to change one character, and whatever integration work you've done in getting like token balances and transactions and NFTs and so on is now accessible in any of the 200 chains by just one character change. So you just change it from Ethereum to Polygon, or to Arbitrum, or to Optimism, or to Moonbeam, doesn't matter. Everything is just works. It's just accessible. So it's a fantastic product to go to market, because most products are multi-chain. So you don't have to go and understand the nuances behind these different chains. There's no point in redoing the integration work per chain, and this just makes it so much simpler. So that's the magic of the Gold Rush API, and it provides a set of API endpoints that are super easy to use, very, very straightforward, and it's been quite successful in the industry with pretty broad adoption.
That sounds good. So I want to switch gears a little bit. Talk about, as far as data concerned, you talk about there's biased AI models that are out there that are capturing all kinds of data and presenting it in not so accurate fashion, right? So how do we use blockchain, and especially Ethereum, to reduce risks of manipulated biased AI models?
So this is a great question, and is probably the edge of what we're exploring and investing in and pushing forward with the Covalent stack. So fundamentally, what blockchains offer is what I call as a provenance stack. So what is provenance? Provenance just means that who said what and when, and you can go back and trace this. So blockchains do this beautifully, because your signing key tells you who did it. Your block timestamp, when it was mined on the blockchain, tells you when this happened. And the actual transaction tells you what happened. Now, whether that's true or false is outside the scope of the blockchain, but it tells you the provenance, that trail of this is what happened. Now, one of the challenges with these language models is that you don't really know where the data is from. So people talk about inference, decentralized training, but nobody really talks about decentralized data, which is essentially the entire reservoir of data that you feed into your LLM. So who cares if your training and your inference is completely verifiable, but you fed the LLM garbage manipulated data, and now your inference engine tells you that the first president of the United States is black, and that's what you start to see with a lot of these LLMs which have been manipulated. And so the way to do this is have the data that comes into these LLMs from a structured database that is completely verifiable. And so that is essentially what Covalent offers. So I'm quite excited about this. There's about 20 different startups that are using the Covalent data and building these LLMs, training these LLMs for a variety of reasons, mostly around forensics, fraud detection, copy trading, and so on. And now the magic is that if there's anything that's gone wrong downstream, you have the full audit trail, the full data provenance of this is how the process went in. And it's backed by a blockchain, which is an immutable ledger. So the blockchain itself cannot be manipulated. So we use the blockchain as this substrate to feed verifiable data to an LLM. So the whole stack, it's basically the whole internet, the whole LLM stack is now beautifully organized. So that is the idea behind this. And I feel what's going to happen in a few years is just like how you have champagne and then you have sparkling wine, and it's only sparkling wine. It's only champagne if it comes from the Champagne region. Otherwise, it's just sparkling wine. You're going to have LLMs that have verifiable data and LLMs without. So this would be the sparkling data and just your, champagne of data. And so I think the world is going to move to that direction where, people are going to be relying on these LLMs for your everyday need, and they will want these essentially guarantees that the data hasn't been manipulated. So that's the world that we're building for today.
I didn't want to talk about politics, but we have an election coming up here in the US, and we have all kinds of different, depending on what social media site you go to, or what news site you go to, there are different uh, facts, and I'll put that in quotes, you know, um, that are being presented. And I tell you, the common layperson has no idea what they can believe in anymore, right? So how your platform can help ensure the validity of what those facts are.
That is exactly right. So I think along with the facts, because facts, I think at some point is open to interpretation and judgment. But the key point here is accountability, right? I think the gap is that these politicians make these tall claims and there's no accountability, there's no ledger, there's no immutable structure, data structure that keeps them accountable. So now every politician has to sign every piece of information that they put out with their signing key, and it exactly is a catalog of this politician said this at this point in time. So that's the data provenance. And likewise, the content that's coming out right now is that the generated synthetic content that's coming from these generative AI programs is indistinguishable from actual content. It's literally, you don't know the difference. Like I saw a video last week with Kamala Harris and Trump holding hands and dancing. Now that's obviously completely fake. I know that because they're never going to be doing that. But if and it's you can't tell the difference that this is a artificial generative video. So you can have politicians say things, but the key thing is that all of this information needs a signing key, needs that cryptographic proof that this is actually done. So if there's any piece of content they see it, you look at like who signed this, and if it's not from a chain of command in terms of like the authorized signatory, then there's no reason for you to trust that piece of content because it hasn't been signed. So I think that's the world that we should move to. Now, this is me speaking as a ideologist. So let's see if these technologies actually gain adoption.
Yeah, I like the ideology argument, and I also like the fact if I go to a website, it says "Long live Ethereum." You know, um, so why is that your mantra?
So we believe in Ethereum, and I think Ethereum has a chance to become this global movement that essentially, makes the world equitable and fair. And for that, Ethereum should not take any shortcuts, and Ethereum should not ape into ideas and concepts that jeopardizes its core mission. And so here's a way that we've laid out a roadmap along with all of the partners, the rollups, the alt DAs, the DA, the Ethereum Wayback Machine, that as Ethereum is coming of age, it continues to not be disillusioned, and the community is not disillusioned, and there's no infighting. So, hence that slogan.
I love it. So, I want to thank you very much for taking time to speak to me today. I enjoyed our conversation. I think you're up to some really cool things. So thank you. So I have one last question. And it's easy. How can people find out more information about you, about Covalent? How can they do that?
Absolutely. So the website is covalenthq.com. We do have a token. It's called CXT. It stands for the Covalent X token. It's a ERC20 token that's available on most of the major exchanges: OKX, KuCoin, Gate, Crypto.com, Kraken, and so on. Gold Rush API is goldrush.dev. So that's where you have access to the API. And on socials, we are at Covalent_HQ. If you want to follow me, I'm at GANE5H. So instead of the S, it's a 5 because back in my teens, I thought it was pretty cool and it somehow stuck. And so we are easily accessible. Ping us, go join the testnet, be part of the movement, the verifiable data movement. And there's lots of exciting things to do. And I think there's a lot of work ahead of us, but we're committed to seeing this through.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much for your time today.
Jamil, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for this platform for sharing what we've been up to. And let's chat soon. Thank you.